Let's get to Tim Walz, who, just when you think no one's sitting at this table, neither she nor the big white blanket, can embarrass themselves any further, he does. She asks him, to her credit, about the carrying the weapons in war, which we know is a lie. He never served in war. He's been stealing valor for quite some time.
Tim Walz has coasted for years on a reputation built on being Minnesota nice. The folksy governor with a smile, a handshake, and an affable persona. But when Megyn Kelly turns her attention his way, that easygoing veneer collapses fast. She peels back the carefully crafted image, exposing a politician whose charm can't cover contradictions, missteps, and opportunism. Kelly doesn't just poke holes in Walz's act. She burns through entirely, leaving his legacy wobbling like a house of cards in the wind.
He's also out on the new media tour and trying to help her when he's not defending his comments on the Electoral College. And he sits down with Michael Strahan, who's the best thing ABC has going. And Strahan actually asks him about his many, many lies. There's a much longer list than actually came up, but he did raise it to his credit. Here's how that works.
Tim Walz has long tried to sell himself as the everyman governor, a corn-fed Midwestern dad who just happens to run a state. He wraps himself in that Minnesota nice image, the kind of guy who probably shows up at church potlucks with casserole and a story about his high school football days. But when Megyn Kelly takes aim, that whole act collapses faster than a lawn chair in a windstorm. Because beneath the friendly smile and soft tones lies a politician who has played every side of the fence, and Megyn makes sure no fence is left standing.
That you carried weapons in war, but you have never deployed actually in a war zone. A campaign official said that you misspoke. Did you?
Well, first of all, I'm incredibly proud. I've done 24 years of wearing the uniform of this country. Equally proud of my service in a public school classroom, whether it's Congress or the governor. My record speaks for itself, but I think people are coming to get to know me. I speak like they do. I speak candidly. I wear my emotions on my sleeves, and I speak especially passionately about our children being shot in school.
If you are enjoying this video, please make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon. She doesn't just laugh at the contradictions. She spotlights them like a searchlight on a backyard raccoon. Tim Walz has branded himself as the steady hand of the Midwest. But the reality looks more like a man juggling policies, promising one thing to one crowd while whispering the opposite to another. And Kelly isn't buying the Minnesota nice routine. To her, Walz isn't a leader. He's the human embodiment of beige wallpaper, bland, unoriginal, and easily forgotten until you realize how badly it clashes with the furniture.
Statements that just aren't true. And the comment about weapons of war that I carried in war, which you didn't. You said that you were in Hong Kong during the Tiananmen Square massacre when you weren't. You kind of chalked it all up to bad grammar or getting the dates wrong.
Yeah.
But your opponents say you lied to make yourself look better. Do they have a point?
Well, look, 35 years ago, got the opportunity to be in Hong Kong, be in China, learned a lot about it, served 24 years in the National Guard, passionately, in an instance, talking about gun violence in school.
The problem with Walz's brand of leadership is that it thrives on pretending problems don't exist until they smack him square in the face. Crime rates? He shrugs and throws out a platitude about community values. Education struggles? He's there with a photo op in a classroom, nodding along like he's about to solve everything with one encouraging smile. And then he disappears, leaving actual results as elusive as a Minnesota summer that lasts more than 2 weeks. Kelly tears this apart, showing how Walz has managed to turn handling issues into basically just posing near them.
Fallout continues for Tim Walz on the disastrous performance he delivered, in particular when it comes to his self-described knuckle-headed behavior, which was just his latest in a series of lies. The reason he resorted to, I'm a knucklehead, was he got confronted with his latest lie.
But it isn't just the lack of substance that Megyn skewers. It's the contradictions that practically write themselves. Walz positions himself as a champion of small-town values, yet his policies often sound like they were lifted directly from the wish lists of big-city bureaucrats. He'll preach about freedom and responsibility, then turn around and cheer for government overreach when it suits his political allies. Megyn exposes a pattern. Walz is less a leader and more a political chameleon, constantly changing shades depending on who's watching.
I think people know me. They know who I am. They know where my heart is. And again, my record has been out there for over 40 years to speak for itself.
And the idea that you said that you were in war, did you misspeak as the campaign has said?
Yeah, I said we were talking about, in this case, this was after a school shooting, the ideas of carrying these weapons of war. And my wife, the English teacher, told me my grammar's not always correct. But again, if it's not this, it's an attack on my children for showing love for me, or it's an attack on my dog.
This took chutzpah. Let's go through it. You said you carried weapons in war, but you've never deployed in a war zone. A campaign official of yours said you misspoke. Did you? Well, I'm proud, incredibly proud of my record.
What really sets the roast ablaze, though, is when Kelly dives into how Walz handled crisis. The pandemic turned his governorship into a reality test. And boy, did the cracks show. One moment, he was presenting himself as the guardian of public safety, handing down mandates like candy on Halloween. The next, he was fumbling with mixed messages, confusing constituents more than clarifying anything. Calm doesn't mean effective, she argues. It just means he wasn't panicking on camera. Off camera, his leadership was about as organized as a garage sale in the rain. Rules changed by the day. Priorities flipped overnight, and his explanations sounded like someone making excuses for forgetting their homework. People weren't getting clarity. They were getting chaos with a friendly accent.
On Earth, there's a long list of them. This one was that he was in China when the Tiananmen Square disaster unfolded, when hundreds of people were killed. You know whether you were in a place where hundreds of people are being massacred by their government when it happens. But he continues to try to say, like, oh, gee, I was just kind of confused. You know, that happened in May and I was there in August, but I guess I just imagined that I was there, whatever. So he got asked about that debate moment where he completely melted.
Then there's his approach to policing and public safety, where contradictions really pile up. Walz talks tough when the cameras are rolling, claiming to support law enforcement, but then folds like a paper plate at a barbecue when progressive activists shout loud enough. Megyn highlights how his leadership during moments of social unrest wasn't leadership at all. It was political duck and cover. He let chaos brew, hoping his passive approach would somehow count as understanding. But understanding doesn't stop riots, and empathy doesn't restore order. Kelly skewers him for trying to appease everyone, which ultimately left everyone furious. The roasting really sharpens when she compares Walz's governing style to Minnesota winters, long, drawn out, and filled with promises that spring is right around the corner. But spring never quite arrives when you need it most. Megyn also takes aim at the myth that Walz is somehow relatable. Sure, he throws around anecdotes about growing up in rural Nebraska and teaching high school, but that doesn't erase the reality that he's now a polished career politician. His everyman persona is less genuine authenticity and more political cosplay.
Well, they're comparing this moment by Tim Walz to that because he looked so inept and like a faker, like he didn't belong there and he was trying to convince us of something that wasn't real as he decided to go pheasant hunting. And Charlie, you're a gun guy. You tell me whether this looked authentic to you. Here he is.
That's my theory. And it never fits quite right. Never fits quite right. Just not quite right. How do you give it back?
Governor, what kind of gun is it?
This is a Beretta A400.
Kelly mocks the idea that Walz is still just one of us. The truth? He's been living in the political bubble so long that the only small town he remembers is the one his campaign consultants write about in speeches. And let's not ignore the economic record, which Kelly happily carves up. Walz has tried to spin his fiscal policies as steady stewardship, but Minnesota under his watch has looked more like an experiment in how fast you can make taxpayers roll their eyes. High taxes? Check. Bloated budgets? Double check. And somehow, with all that spending, essential services still lag. It's the political version of buying every kitchen gadget in the store and still not being able to cook an edible meal. He's got his eyes on bigger stages. And Kelly doesn't just laugh at the idea, she obliterates it. If Walz can't manage one state without descending into contradictions and mixed messages, what chance does he have on a national stage? It's like the guy who struggles to run a lemonade stand suddenly deciding he's ready to take over Starbucks. Ambition without competence is just delusion, And Kelly exposes Walz as a man who confuses photo ops with leadership and applause with results.
Doing this. Equally proud of my service in the classroom. Did I mention I was a teacher and a coach, an assistant coach? Okay, whatever. But he's more stolen valor. In the classroom, I'm in the classroom. My record speaks for itself. It doesn't, actually. You've put a lot of lies into that record that you've been called out on by service personnel. You must clarify, as your campaign had tried to do. And now you appear to be distancing yourself from that clarification. And then here's two pieces of this that are really... I speak like they do. People are coming to get to know me. I speak like they do. I speak candidly. I wear my emotions on my sleeves. And I speak especially passionately about, and then he goes on to blame it on the school shootings. I guess he was upset about school shootings, so he lied. But stop saying you speak.
She goes further, dismantling the illusion of Walz as a unifier. His defenders claim he brings people together. But Kelly flips that narrative on its head. The only unity he brings is when everyone across the political spectrum rolls their eyes at his speeches. Democrats see him as too cautious, Republicans see him as too reckless, and independents see him as someone who couldn't make a decisive move if his life depended on it. The unifier label isn't earned, it's ironic. Walz has united people in disappointment. And in today's political climate, mediocrity isn't just forgettable, it's dangerous. Because when leaders coast on charm and avoid hard decisions, the consequences fall on everyone else. Kelly's dismantling of the Minnesota Nice facade reduces it to rubble. Walz isn't the calm, steady hand his supporters claim.
And Vice President Harris said that she told you to be a little bit more careful on how you say things.
Well, I did it, even the other day of just speaking passionately about these gun violence situations and meeting with these survivors. I wear my emotions on my sleeve, and I do think in these positions, whether it be governor or being vice president of the United States, you do need to be careful. You do need to be a little more thoughtful on it.
Okay, guys, I will submit to you that the American people are not dumb. And I would submit to you that the American people will look over "I'm friends with school shooters," which he said in that vice presidential debate, as him misspeaking. Everyone will give him that grace. But it's not going to work on this litany of other lies, because you don't misspeak over and over.
He's a politician whose main skill is surviving criticism by looking pleasant while failing upward. And Kelly makes sure the audience sees it with brutal clarity. Behind every folksy grin and soft-spoken answer lies a career defined not by vision, but by avoidance. Walz may have thought his smile was armor, but Megyn Kelly turned into a target, and she didn't miss. Walz's entire strategy has been to count on the public forgetting, moving on, or just not caring enough to scrutinize the details. He banked on the short attention span of politics, believing that if he just smiled long enough and kept repeating folksy slogans, people would eventually give him the benefit of the doubt. For all the speeches about accountability and transparency, Walz's administration has built a reputation for being allergic to scrutiny. When tough questions hit, answers get buried in bureaucracy, drowned in talking points, or kicked down the road until people stop asking. Kelly calls this exactly what it is. Not leadership, but a shell game designed to make incompetence look like strategy. It's a political equivalent of painting over water damage with a fresh coat of white paint, hoping no one notices the cracks spreading underneath.
On Wednesday in Pennsylvania, and here's how he handled it.
I have my dates wrong. I was in Hong Kong and China in 1989. That move from Hong Kong into China, it was profound for me. That was the summer of democracy. I said it's where I understood how sacred democracy was. It's what encouraged me about 15 back and forth with my students, taking them to China. I speak like everybody else speaks. I need to be clear, I will tell you that, but here's my whole point on that thing with China. I do understand China a hell of a lot better than Donald Trump. Kamala Harris understands China.